Chapter 1. The Radiation Storm. The sulfur clouds of Sertal curled like a mass of fiery dough, compressing before bursting outward in streaks of violet-blue light slashing across the sky. The survey ship Ark jolted violently, its metal hull scraping against fragments of plasma, making the entire cabin shudder as if it were grinding across a bed of sharp stone. Red warning lights flickered along the corridor, forming a chain of blinding flashes inside a room far too cramped to contain the chaos pouring in. Dr. Elaine Moretti lunged toward the control panel, her fingers tapping rapidly across the spinning data windows. "The navigation axis is completely destabilized," she gritted out, struggling to keep her voice level. "The radiation storm is increasing exponentially. The dwarf star is releasing a flare far larger than projected." Lieutenant Darius Hale stood behind her, one hand gripping the metal railing to avoid being hurled sideways by the next tremor. His face remained mask-like cold, but his eyes never left the radar display. "Evacuation options?" "No time," Elaine answered immediately. "We have to land, right now." A thunderous crack like an exploding shell shot through the ship's frame. Jax Phelan, the maintenance technician, was thrown out of his seat, like tumbling across the floor before he could even curse properly. Ayu Nakamura rushed to catch him, her face pale. "The navigation core is overloaded. If we don't descend, it'll blow." The next jolt sent the entire crew airborne. Elaine instantly locked onto a faintly flat area below, the terrain glowing a deep red on the scanners, a sign of extreme heat, but still safer than the surrounding crystal fields sharp as spearheads. "Hold tight," she shouted. The ship plunged through the atmosphere like a stone falling into a sea of fire. Toxic layers of gas struck the outer hull, creating writhing trails of light like fire serpents clinging to the steel shell. The windows rattled, yellow tongues of flame dancing wildly, distorted like a nightmare given shape. Darius tightened his grip on the railing, eyes fixed on the imaging feed below. His breath grew heavier as Zertal's surface came into view, a blazing red wasteland, hot dust swirling over cracked ground as though something colossal had dragged its claws across it. "We're entering the toxic layer," Ayu reported, checking the biogauge. "Ammonia and sulfur levels are above threshold if the hull leaks." "Don't say that right now," Jax yelled from the floor. A high metallic shriek cut through the cabin, silencing everyone. An entire wing tore free, spinning away into the cloud sea. Impact in 3, 2, 1. No one had time to brace before Arc 12 slammed into Zertal's surface. The shockwave crushed them into their seats, then hurled them forward as the restraints snapped tight. The control deck floor cracked. Red dust billowed in, seeping through tiny gaps between the warped metal plates. 5 seconds passed in absolute silence. All that remained was a heavy droning in the ears, like lead compressing against the skull. Amid the wreckage, Lieutenant Darius Hale opened his eyes. A brutal pain detonated behind his temples, blurring everything into scorched blotches of color. Emergency sirens still whined somewhere, faint as echoes from a bad dream. He tried to move his arm, but managed only a few centimeters. The safety harness cinched tightly around his bruised muscles. He inhaled and immediately coughed violently. Toxic air had seeped in through cracks in the hull. Darius gritted his teeth, sliced the harness, and forced himself upright. As his vision adjusted to the yellow light seeping through a rupture above, the scene before him froze him in place. The co-pilot seat had split in half. The main console was half melted, and beside it lay Dr. Elaine Moretti, motionless, crushed beneath a fallen slab from the ceiling. Dark, dried blood stained the floor. There was nothing to check, nothing to save. He turned left, toward where engineer Ayu Nakamura had been seated as they entered the atmosphere. Only a torn EVA suit and fragments of shattered armor remained. No body. She might have been sucked out when the hull split. In the rear compartment, Darius found Jax Phelan, the toughest mechanic of the crew. He lay flat on his back, eyes wide open but already extinguished. A metal strut had pierced clean through his abdomen, pinning him to the chair. 4 people, 4 lives, and only one left. Taking a slow breath, Darius quietly closed Phelan's eyes, an automatic gesture turned instinct by years in the Space Security Corps. He had no time to grieve, no time to regret. Zertal was not a place where one could pause to mourn the dead. The temperature was rising steadily. Sweat evaporated as soon as it formed. His thermal armor was still intact, but the shoulder joints were burning hot. If he didn't get out, he would die either from the toxins or the melting hull around him. Darius shoved at the auxiliary door. It didn't budge. He inhaled, stepped back, and slammed his full weight into it. The first hit failed. The second cracked it. The third, the door burst outward, blasting his face with a scalding wave so intense he felt his skin peeling. Outside, Zertal unfolded like the lower realm of hell. A plain of boiling mud stretched to the horizon, sending up pillars of yellow smoke. Beyond it grew forests of Obrex crystals, razor-sharp and glowing with a dull internal red, like hearts beating slowly beneath stone. Wind screamed. The sun above, distorted by the thick, toxic atmosphere, looked like a burning eye socket staring down upon this primordial battleground. Darius braced himself against the doorway. The heat made his armor vibrate. Without it, he'd last minutes at best. He spoke softly into the comms, though he knew no one was left to answer. Arc 12, respond if you can. No sound, only the wind whistling through wreckage, hollow as the whisper of a soul trapped inside metal. Darius checked the HUD on his visor. Navigation offline, air filters at 40%. Suit power enough for 18 hours in current thermal conditions. No satellite signal, no map, no squad. He nearly laughed, the laugh of a man aware he'd hit the bottom. Then suddenly, a low, heavy noise echoed from the crystal forest. Not wind, not metal contracting from heat. Footsteps, heavy, strong, steady, belonging to something with muscles twice the size of a human. The thermal scanner flickered. Something was moving among the red crystals. Its body temperature, far too high for any normal species. Darius immediately slowed, ducked low, gripping the warped but still functioning energy carbine. He didn't know whether it was a native creature or something worse. But if it came close, in his condition, he would die. He retreated into the cabin, grabbed a signal beacon and a spare energy cell. When he stepped out again, the sound had vanished. The field fell into an unnatural silence, the kind only planets familiar with death possessed. Darius didn't look away from the crystal forest. For a moment, he felt watched by something taller, stronger, and unlike anything human biology had ever cataloged. Not a predator beast, not a native, not an accident, but a gaze, an assessment, a weighing, as though he had stepped onto the stage of a hunt without knowing he was the prey. Darius tightened his grip on the weapon, forcing his breath to steady. Alone on this savage planet, he could not afford fear. He told himself, stay alive, at least long enough to find out what that thing is. Far behind him, among the red crystals, a tall shadow quietly lowered its long-range viewing device and slipped into the darkness, silent, unseen, patient. The hunt had begun.